Let's dig in.
A subpoena to get you to then agree to testify previously, so I appreciate you coming in voluntarily today. Before we get into the substance we are here to examine, I want to tell you that this subcommittee has been threatened twice, this Congress. Once by the Chinese Communist Party through its embassy for examining the origins of COVID-19, and a second time by you through your counsel for examining the handling of COVID-19 in nursing homes.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Wow. Okay, so what's the story here? Well, first of all, we have Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York. That was right.
Yep.
Hauled in front of the committee, the subcommittee on the coronavirus origins, right? To answer questions about why he sent so many elderly to nursing homes when they were COVID positive.
Yep.
Now, according to Dr. Winstrup,
The congressman from Ohio.
according to him, Congress was threatened by the CCP via the embassy and also threatened by Cuomo's lawyers for trying to dig into both the origins and his behavior. So I think this is going to be an interesting little segment here. Shawn has the timestamps for us. Let's get this started. Again, very, very concerning regarding these threats that he's talking about. Here we go.
The Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic will come to order. I want to welcome everyone. Without objection, the chair may declare a recess at any time. Before we start, I ask for unanimous consent for Ms. Stefanik, Mr. Jordan, Mr. Langworthy, and Mr. Moskowitz to participate in this hearing for the purposes of questions.
Okay, so I'm going to pause here real quick because I didn't understand what that meant. So I asked Shawn, and basically he's asking for consent to allow these people to ask questions because they're not part of the subcommittee. So, okay, makes sense.
I now recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement. Mr. Cuomo, welcome. I want to thank you for your willingness to participate in today's hearing and for testifying in front of the Select Subcommittee more than 2 months ago. It took issuing a subpoena to get you to then agree to testify previously, so I appreciate you coming in voluntarily today.
And the other hearing apparently flew under the radar because this is the first I had heard of it.
Yeah, I didn't even know about it.
Interesting.
Before we get into the substance we are here to examine, I want to tell you that this subcommittee has been threatened twice, this Congress. Once by the Chinese Communist Party through its embassy for examining the origins of COVID-19.
Which is incredibly suspicious. If you guys had nothing to do with the origins, then why are you worried?
Uh-huh.
And a second time by you through your counsel for examining the handling of COVID-19 in nursing homes. I can tell you, we have not and we will not bow to these threats. I certainly hope you do not approve of these tactics, or perhaps you aren't aware of them, Governor Cuomo, which seems to be a consistent pattern. Nonetheless, Select Subcommittee is holding this hearing today to examine your administration's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic in New York. Specifically, we want to focus on the issuance of a directive that resulted in the admittance and readmittance, according to the AP, of more than 9,000 potentially COVID-positive individuals to nursing homes.
Which is just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, look, obviously hindsight is 20/20, but even at the time, we were told, all of us were told, the sick, the elderly, the infirm, the people with comorbidities, people with other health conditions, those are the highest risk. So why would you send thousands of people COVID positive into nursing homes?
It looks almost intentional.
Almost intentional, doesn't it? Yeah. I have a real hard time believing there was no intent there. I just do.
The The Select Subcommittee has been authorized to investigate the COVID-19 pandemic and to explore lessons learned, positive or negative, to better prepare for future pandemics.
That's a good
Since
idea.
the beginning of this Congress, we've been committed to conducting a thorough investigation, free from influence and unafraid to follow the facts wherever they may lead. We've acted in a transparent fashion, cognizant that Americans deserve to see our work and review all available information so they can draw their own conclusions.
I agree with that.
We're examining actions taken by Congress, including measures I voted for, but might want to do differently or better the next time, so that when the next shocking pandemic occurs, we have looked back, found what worked and what didn't, and established a workable system so that we may endure.
Look, the facts are mistakes were made.
Mm-hmm.
Let's learn from them and implement better if something like this happens again. Not really if, when. Because we know it is what it is.
Mhm.
You can get into that.
This is an after-action review
Yeah.
in hopes of being able to predict, prepare, protect, and perhaps even prevent the next
Some
pandemic.
peas.
In search for best pandemic practices, today's hearing is focused on New York and the March 25, 2020 directive from the New York State Department of Health issued under Governor Andrew Cuomo's leadership.
Okay.
In this investigation, we have reviewed more than 500,000 documents,
Cool.
and we've conducted
lot of
10
documents.
transcribed interviews with members of your administration, including you. Our findings are based on the evidence and testimonies that we have received. This is a comprehensive and painstaking endeavor to find out what happened in New York nursing homes, with more than 2,000 pages of testimony publicly released to support our conclusions. Simply put, America cannot move forward without first looking back. And that includes examining your directive, Governor. Mr. Cuomo, I think you'll agree that New York State became ground zero for much of the pandemic in the United States.
Okay. So, pretty well established. A, there are people that are not happy about this investigation. And also, that's a lot of damn documents, dude.
Yeah.
500,000 documents.
Uh-huh.
All right. Our next clip is
From the ranking member.
from the ranking member, California Democrat, Ruiz. Yeah. All right. So it's at the 1426 mark. Okay. Is that him?
Yep.
Is that Ruiz? All right. Here we go. Oh, it's 1426 to 1756. And you can find this video, full hearing, Andrew Cuomo faces brutal grilling over handling of COVID-19 in coronavirus committee, blah, 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 blah. This is Forbes.
Forbes breaking news.
There you go.
With 4 years having passed since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, many of us have become numb to the grave uncertainty that we faced in 2020. That spring, as a novel virus took hold across our nation, hospitals overflowed with patients as hundreds and eventually thousands of Americans died each day. Frontline healthcare workers were forced to wear garbage bags as gowns, and life as we knew it had come to a total halt. Things were in absolute chaos. And in the midst of that chaos, public officials at every level of government were left to make challenging decisions in real time with constantly evolving information and extremely limited resources.
Let's not forget all the TikTok videos. I'm just saying, we wouldn't have had that if it wasn't for the pandemic. I mean, all the TikTok videos of the nurses and the doctors. Anyway.
Now, with the darkest days of the pandemic behind us, thanks to the Biden-Harris administration's historic work getting vaccines and arms, safely reopening schools and businesses, and jump-starting our economy, we have the opportunity to look back on those decisions and learn from them. And in doing so, we can acknowledge that in future public health crises, we would make certain decisions differently. One such case is policies that arguably required the readmission of COVID-19 patients back into nursing homes without infection prevention and control in an early effort to relieve hospital strain. In hindsight, knowing now what we do about how COVID-19 spreads, including through aerosolized droplets and by asymptomatic carriers, these policies were a misstep, and they are something we can learn from as we look to better prepare for future pandemics. However, we must be comprehensive in our examination of where things went right and where things went wrong in responding to COVID-19. And we would be doing our nation's seniors and nursing home residents a disservice by not taking a hard and honest look at the data that has emerged from that period. And this data shows us that the driving force behind the infections and fatalities that occurred in our nation's nursing homes was broader community spread, which led to dedicated staff inadvertently bringing the virus into these vulnerable settings.
Oh, okay. I see where this is going. If you guys haven't picked up on it yet, if you have, well done. It's the staff members' fault.
Yep.
It's not the fact that Cuomo sent thousands of people to their death. It's the staff members' fault. Okay. All right.
Yep. That's what the Democrats.
That's what they're going to push. Makes sense.
And as we look back on policy missteps that put our nation's seniors at risk, I would be remiss if I did not mention that the issue of community spread, the driving factor, is one that was severely exacerbated by the severe shortages of PPE and tests that our nation experienced at the hand of former President Trump and his administration's early blood.
Oh, yeah, it was Trump's fault, too. I'm sorry. Yes, the staff members and Donald Trump. That's whose fault it is. Right, because that makes sense.
These failures hampered our efforts to get a handle on the outbreak of COVID-19 and left states to fend for themselves when it came to obtaining critically needed supplies to protect our most vulnerable. As ranking member, I've championed objectivity and called for the select subcommittee to put people over politics. And in that vein, I want to make something abundantly clear. Any public official who sought to obscure transparency or mislead the American people during the COVID-19 pandemic should answer to the American public, regardless of political party.
Fair enough.
That's it. I agree with the final statement, if only it was actually that way. Because as we can already see, it's Trump's fault. It's the staff's fault. It's not that you took vulnerable people and put them in a highly vulnerable situation. It's Trump's fault. It's the staff's fault.
Yeah.
These people kill me, dude. And apparently a lot more. Look, I have a dark sense of humor. That's just how it is. All right. So our next little clip is the intro and swearing in of the only witness.
Yep.
Former Governor Cuomo. And that's at 2045 to 2157. All right, you ready? Minute and a half, approximately. Here we go.
Thank you, Dr. Ruiz. Before we proceed with witness statement, I want to announce a subpoena to the governor of New York for documents related to Mr. Cuomo and his March 25th directive.
Okay.
The subpoena is vitally important as this inquiry continues, and because the current governor is improperly withholding documents from Mr. Cuomo's time that are responsive to our requests.
That is interesting. So the Democrat that was just talking about accountability and transparency, apparently the current governor is not complying. Who is the current
Kathy Hochul.
Hochul, right?
No, Hochul.
Hochul. Well, I don't know how you say it,
I think
but Kathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was his lieutenant governor.
Yeah. Amazingly, she's not being very transparent.
No. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
hope that Governor Hochul lives up to her
Hochul.
promise of transparency and proceeds without further
Well,
delay.
yeah.
Our witness today is Mr. Andrew Cuomo. Mr. Cuomo was governor of the state of New York from 2011 to 2021. Pursuant to the Committee on Oversight and Accountability Rule 9G, the witness will please stand and raise his right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Let the record show that the witness answered in the affirmative. The Select Subcommittee.
Okay. Just pausing it for briefly. We're going to continue on because it's going to go right into
His
Andrew
opening
Cuomo,
statement.
His opening statement, which looks like it's
a while.
yeah, it's about 8 minutes long, seven minutes.
And it was supposed to be only 5 minutes, I
Yeah.
believe.
But here we go.
We certainly appreciate you for being here today, Governor Cuomo, and we look forward to your testimony. Let me remind the witness that we have read as much as we could of your written statement, and it will appear in full in the hearing record. As requested, please limit your oral statement to 6 minutes,
6 minutes.
as we agreed upon.
But he
As a
didn't.
reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it is on and the members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 5 minutes, the light will turn yellow. When the red light comes on, your 6 minutes has expired, and we would ask that you please wrap up. I now recognize Mr. Cuomo to give an opening statement.
Okay, so we're at just like, because I really want to do this. We're at 22:48. So 28:48 is when it should be over. But the timestamp that I have from Shawn goes to 29:22.
So he went
So I
over
think
by
he went
like
over. Yeah, but
about 40 seconds.
yeah, but here we go. Let's hear what Andrew Cuomo has to say.
Thank you. First, to the families of the victims here today and across the country, I am sorry for your loss, and I believe you are owed an apology because this country should have done better. There is no reason why we lost.
Okay, it's Trump's fault. I already foresee this because you're owed an apology, but not by me.
Uh-huh.
Because
You thought he
this country should have done better, which means it's Trump's fault. I'm calling it.
1.2 million people, more than any country on the globe, when we have the most sophisticated medical system. This committee must deliver real answers so it never happens again, and I am here today to help in that mission. As you know, New York was hit first and worst by COVID through no fault of its own. I did daily briefings, and millions listened in because they needed information and guidance. And yes, I often vehemently disagreed with President Trump because from day one, he willfully deceived the American people.
There it is.
Denying COVID's very real threat, telling us that it was like the flu, it would go away by Easter, it was a Democratic hoax, use Clorox.
There's the Clorox.
Seriously, bruh.
Yeah.
How much debunking do we need to do? Bruh. Okay, see, you've already lost all credibility. At this point, I was like, okay, obviously he's going to spin it. He's going to say, Trump's fault. Up until the Clorox bullshit, I was like, I mean, I get it, right? You're going to try to shift blame however you can. But at this point, I can't believe anything you say.
And his lies and denials delayed our response, let the virus spread, and this country never caught up.
Need I remind you that Trump shut down people from China, closed everything down when the Democrats were telling you to go party in the street? These fucking people.
And they called him a bigot.
Yeah.
For doing
Yeah.
it.
And call him a bigot and xenophobic and all this other shit.
Trump literally said, I take no responsibility, and he fabricated political attacks blaming Democratic governors, including saying that New York issued a health order on March 25th having COVID-positive people enter nursing homes from hospitals, which recklessly and needlessly caused thousands of deaths. And then Trump weaponized the Department of Justice, starting
That's
investigations against New York and 3 other Democratic states. Trump's shocking allegations, all false, were designed to shift blame from him to Democrats, and they did. They also created great pain, confusion, and fear for families. And this subcommittee, run by Republicans, repeats the Trump lies and deceptions, and it inherently makes 2 powerful admissions. First, their report does not deny, contrary to what New York Republicans said for 4 years, it does not deny that it was actually the Trump administration, the CMS and CDC, that first said in early March that COVID-positive people could go from hospitals to nursing homes, even if they were still infectious. That was your ruling. The committee attempts to
don't
argue
remember
that the
that.
New York advisory didn't follow the CMS guidance and overrode safety laws. But that has already been investigated by the New York Attorney General, who said,
Who's the New York Attorney General? Is that Letitia James?
No. That's wait.
No, she's from Georgia, isn't she?
It might be James. Let me find out.
Yeah, find out who the New York AG is.
I thought she was a district attorney, but she might be.
Yeah,
You're right. It is.
it is Letitia James.
You're right.
Yeah, because she's trustworthy. Come on, man. Bruh.
you're wrong, and who confirmed the March 25th advisory was in total compliance with federal guidelines, and that all New York's nursing home laws remained in effect, period. In addition, the report provides no evidence to support Trump's main allegation, repeated for 3 years, that New York's guidance killed thousands in nursing homes. In fact, the report finds no causality whatsoever, not one death, all hype. Why? Because it never happened. All credible studies now say that COVID came into nursing homes through community spread and infected staff, not hospital admissions or readmissions. Numbers don't lie. 35 states had a higher death rate in nursing homes than New York, including Ohio. Most Republican states actually had a higher death rate in nursing homes than New York in 2020. And that fact damns them and reveals their hypocrisy. But these are all diversions to blame New York and other states for the culpability of the federal response, which was malpractice. There was no preparation, no PPE, no testing, no masks, no science, no leadership. As one Republican governor said about Trump, the general was missing in action, leaving 50 states bidding against each other for scarce medical supplies. It was the COVID Hunger Games.
And I just want to point out for those of you maybe who aren't aware, the Trump administration was left in clutch by the Obama administration because all the stuff had been sold off. The PPE, the masks, all the stuff that we should have had stockpiled wasn't there. Now you do your own research on why that is, whether that was intentional, accidental, or just a series of bureaucratic mismanagement. But that was the case. There was nothing there, so how could it be issued? It didn't exist, which is one reason why I can't think of the name of it, but where the federal government has factories produce material. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, you're talking about when the federal government forces companies to produce the
yeah. I can't think of
Production
the name of
Act.
it. What's that?
Production Act.
Yeah, something like that. National production. Anyway, Trump ramped that up and had all the stuff. So, I mean, it's Andrew Cuomo. What do you expect? but he's obviously going to attempt to blame everyone and anyone but himself.
Federal government was nowhere to be found. New Yorkers remember well those traumatic days when the only sound that echoed through the empty streets was the constant.
And I want to say this too. You know, all these governors, especially Democrat governors, they like to point the blame at Trump and the federal government. You're a state. You are a governor of a very big, as far as financial, state. New York, good Lord, dude. Why can't you seem to do anything without the federal government?
It's the Defense Production Act.
That's it. Defense Production Act. Thank you.
Sirens from ambulances, when mass graves were being dug on Hart's Islands, when bodies were being stored in refrigerated trucks. Our hospital system nearly collapsed, and Trump was threatening to send federal troops to blockade New York so no one could leave. That was the federal response. And yes, New Yorkers were scared, but they were New York tough, and they showed that they responded to government leadership when they believed it was based on facts. In that moment in New York, there were no Democrats and Republicans. There were just New Yorkers helping and relying on each other. They were guided by their better angels. They followed science, took vaccines, wore masks, and acted responsibly, one for another. New Yorkers' heroic actions brought us back from the brink and saved many, many lives. When COVID started in 2020, we had the highest death rate in the country. But at the end of 2021, remarkably, New York had a lower death rate than 30 states. But even with all New Yorkers did, we lost far too many. And I'm sorry for every life lost. In closing, I know this is a political year, and I have testified before many, many congressional committees. But this issue really matters. There will be another pandemic, and they will pull out your report for guidance. I hope it has real answers. God forbid 1.2 million people died in vain. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. About what I expected. Everything's Trump's fault. I take no responsibility. All right. We're going to go into Winstrup,
The chair.
the chairman from Ohio, and he looks like about 10 minutes. So here we go.
Thank you. I now recognize myself for as much time as I may consume for questions, with equal time being afforded to the ranking member of the committee. The question is asked, did the federal government require that the state of New York mandate that its nursing homes admit or readmit residents? The answer is no.
No, it didn't.
Did the federal government mandate that your state issue a directive that prohibited a nursing home from testing an admitted or readmitted resident for COVID-19? The answer is no. In fact, I don't believe I'm aware of any other state besides yours that expressly prohibited a nursing home from testing returning or newly admitted residents. Only in New York. The other states that have been alleged, issued similar orders, none were in place as long as New York. So many states reverse course. And I surmise, because it doesn't take a doctor to realize that it was a dangerous, misguided plan. Nevertheless, Governor, you've maintained and testified to us since the pandemic that your directive was based on and consistent with CMS and CDC guidelines. You're a lawyer, so you know the difference between permissive versus prescriptive language, I assume. Yeah. And the word shall and must, are they permissive or prescriptive? Governor, are the words shall and must permissive or prescriptive?
It depends on the context.
Okay. Well, those words are right in the directive. This was not advisory or guidance. You have also claimed that the directive followed CMS and CDC guidance. Did you ever speak with anyone at CMS or CDC about the directive beforehand?
You'd have to ask the Department of Health had those conversations.
So what you're saying is you did not ever speak with anyone at CMS or CDC about the directive beforehand. I'm asking you. I can ask them later, but
I
I'm
spoke
asking
to
you,
the CMS and CDC about a number of matters.
did
I
you
don't believe
speak to them about the directive beforehand, your directive?
I did not speak to them about this directive,
So no.
to the best of my recollection.
Not even after? After the directive, did you speak with them?
To the best of my recollection, no. Nor did they speak with me.
Not even to ensure that what you
No, they
were-
never called.
Okay. In fact, no one we interviewed said they consulted with them to ensure the applicable science was being followed. Former White
Follow
House
the science.
coronavirus coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx, she was in charge of all federal guidance in 2020. She testified that your order absolutely violated CMS guidance.
Oh,
Is it your position that Dr. Birx lied?
My position is you deceived Dr. Birx.
wait.
You
That was his
suggested-
answer. Yeah,
You deceived Dr. Birx. That's what he said, right?
that's what he said.
Dr. Birx.
Position that Dr. Birx lied?
My position is you deceived Dr. Birx.
Who is you? This guy here?
Yeah, I think he was saying the other chair.
Okay, hold on.
You suggested to Dr. Birx that we did not have transmission-based precautions in place. And that was not true. As you know, the Attorney General conducted this investigation. This is not new news. These charges were made 4 years ago. You then had 3 Department of Justice investigations that reviewed them. You then had an Attorney General's investigation that reviewed them. The Attorney General of New York, who governs the New York law and interprets the New York law, found exactly contrary to what you are saying and said it repeatedly. And you know she said it repeatedly. She said, quote, the March 25th advisory did not require admission of COVID-19 patients into nursing homes, but rather said the admission could not be denied solely. Merriam-Webster says that means only on the basis of the COVID diagnosis. The Attorney General said, while some commentators, and these were Republican commentators she was referring to, suggested Department of Health March 25th guidance was a directive that nursing homes accept COVID-19 patients, even if they could not care for them, such an interpretation would violate statutes and regulations that place obligations on nursing homes to care for residents. The March 25th guidance was consistent with the CMS guidance. The March 25th guidance was consistent with the CMS guidance.
Okay, so basically, same theme. Everything is the federal government's fault. I take no responsibility
Yep.
for anything that I did. And my little crony, Letitia James, found the same thing. Well, what? I mean, come on, man. Like, of course she's going to back you up. Like, look at her.
If nursing homes have the ability to adhere to infection prevention and control recommendations, it was also consistent with CDC published transmission-based precautions. That's the Attorney General's position and opinion, and that's the law of the state of New York. And when you spoke to Dr. Birx, you posed the question suggesting we did not have infection protections in place, and that was not true.
Mr. Cuomo, you're a lawyer, so you know the difference between permissive versus prescriptive language, I assume.
In a context, I will interpret it for you, as the Attorney
words
General
shall-
did here.
Thank
As
you.
the Attorney General did here.
Yeah, are the words shall and must permissive or prescriptive?
Depends on the context. In this context, the nursing homes were not directed to accept anyone.
So
It was up to the discretion of the nursing home. That was made abundantly clear. All the laws of the state of New York remained in effect. As a matter of fact, the law of the state of New York says they can only accept people who they can care for. The law of the state of New York says they have to do a full diagnosis before a person comes in. If they have a communicable disease, they have to have a written letter saying the person is not infectious or an infection plan in place. So every law in the state of New York
But they weren't allowed to
governing
test
nursing homes was in effect, sir.
What?
But if I remember right, they weren't allowed to test them.
Well,
for COVID.
that's where the problem is coming in. Is like, well, did you require COVID testing?
No, they didn't.
And no, they didn't.
I think he made it a point to make sure that they couldn't test them.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this guy's again trying to shuffle responsibility,
Yeah.
shirk responsibility. But you're the top of the food chain for that state, and stop saying the federal government.
Yeah.
Nobody cares, dude. You were in charge of your own state, and nothing the federal government did or didn't do had anything to do with you shuffling people off to nursing homes.
Mm-hmm.
And even if there was particular guidelines in place, that was up to you to decide to follow or not. And guidelines are just that. Okay, here's the base level of protection, for example, right? That you have to have. You can always do better than that. You can always go more than that. But it's ridiculous.
Well, Governor, there might be a lot of lawyers who disagree with you. Using the
Attorney
word,
General
using the,
covers.
excuse me,
Yeah,
using
shut-
the word shall and must. These words are right here in the directive. This was not advisory or guidance. It wasn't.
No.
You have also claimed that the directive followed CMS and CDC guidance. Did you ever speak with anyone at CMS or CDC about the directive beforehand?
The Attorney General
Oh my
said
God.
it follows CMS guidance and is consistent with CMS guidance. When you talk about attorneys, yes, I'm an attorney. Yes, I'm the former Attorney General of New York. But the law is interpreted by the current Attorney General. That is how she interpreted the law. That is the law that was in place. That was the
That's
law
not
that
what
was
you're
in
being
place during the
No.
pandemic.
No.
She has sued
He's
nursing
skirming
homes
the question.
for
Oh, yeah.
misconduct during the pandemic based on that
Thank
law.
you, Governor. My question was, did you ever speak with anyone, you, Governor Cuomo, did you ever speak with anyone at CMS or CDC about the directive beforehand? You, Governor Cuomo,
You asked that question and I answered the question and I said no.
did you or not?
I said no. I answered the question.
Okay, thank
no.
you. Not even after, correct?
I said yes, and they never called me after.
Why
You
would they
think
call
if
you?
They had a problem
Yeah.
with the directive, they would have
You're
called.
the governor.
If it was
You
so
What? I think if they had a problem with the directive, they would have called. What kind of reactionary bullshit is that? You are the governor of the state of New York. You are responsible for what happens in your state. And look, we can hate what Holcomb did all we want, but at least Holcomb took responsibility and said, "I'm doing this."
Yeah, he
I
had
mean,
so many press hearings.
yeah, he kept the people
He
informed.
did.
I'm not a fan, but like at least Holcomb's not going to sit there and say everything Trump's fault. Like, dude, or I'm sorry, not just Trump, Republicans, the federal government in general, the nursing homes, and the staff at the nursing homes. That's whose fault everything was. That's why so many people died. I had nothing to do with it. I was just the governor.
outrageous, as
You didn't even
suggest,
call
they
to,
would have
you
called.
didn't even call to ensure that you were, what you were declaring was accurate. Yes or
Right.
no?
I don't know if the Department of Health.
Did you,
which issued-
Governor Cuomo, right now I'm talking to you, Governor
Yes.
Cuomo,
The-
did you even attempt to ensure that what you were declaring was accurate? I'm asking you.
Yes, I
I don't want to
understand.
hear about anyone else.
Okay, Department of Health issued 400 advisories, several per day. I did not speak to
Thank you.
CMS about 400 advisories.
Thank you. In fact, no one we interviewed said they consulted with them to ensure the applicable science was being followed. Former White House coronavirus coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx, she was in charge of all federal guidance in 2020. She testified that your order absolutely violated CMS guidance. Is it your position that Dr. Birx lied?
You misrepresented the
I'm
facts
asking a
to
question.
Dr.
I'm
Birx.
stating what she said. I'm not misrepresenting anything.
Well, what,
Because this is what she said, and I just want you, I'm asking you if Dr. Birx lied. That's my question.
Dr. Birx said that the March 25th advisory, which you read to her in your words,
So he
didn't
read it
have
wrong.
appropriate infection control procedures.
It's
That was
everybody
by
else's
your
fault.
representation.
Right.
The
right.
Attorney General's
Misrepresentation.
representation
Here we go.
is the law of the state of New York was in effect, which has an infection control plan, mandates they only accept people who they can handle, mandates that if the person is a communicable disease, that it's treated before they accept the person or they don't. So the infection-based control precautions were in place.
Yeah, I see how this is going. Look, guys, we got more to go through, but I think it's obvious he's not going to take responsibility for anything.
No.
He's going to blame Trump. He's going to blame everybody else and continue to fall back on my crony said everything was okay. Dude. All right, our next clip is very
The
shortly
ranking
ahead.
member.
What's that?
Ranking member,
Ruiz. Yep. Okay. So here we go. And this is, again, about 10 minutes.
Something I believe every member of the Select Subcommittee would agree on is the obligation that every public official has to be transparent with the American people, especially during a public health crisis.
Yep.
Transparency, including with public health data, is necessary for public trust.
Yes.
And it's expected of those who hold elected office. What's more accurate and comprehensive data is critical to develop forward-looking policies to prevent and prepare for future pandemics. As an emergency physician, I know firsthand that when dealing with a new and evolving public health crisis, every piece of data can help build a better picture of what we are facing and inform better decisions.
That makes sense.
Governor Cuomo, I appreciate your voluntary participation in today's hearing, as well as your cooperation with the Select Subcommittee in recent months. After reviewing nearly 200,000 pages of documents and conducting 10 closed-door interviews, questions still remain regarding the extent to which your administration was transparent in reporting nursing home fatality data, both with respect to the daily numbers and the numbers included in the July 6, 2020 New York State Department of Health report. As an initial matter, let's talk generally about your administration's public reporting of COVID-19 related deaths. So, Governor Cuomo, your administration publicly reported COVID-19 related deaths with a fatality tracker available on a public website, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The New York State Department of Health also posted a daily report specific to nursing home deaths on a publicly available webpage, right?
I don't know specifically what the Department of Health had separately.
That's reasonable.
Initially, the nursing home fatality data included deaths both in facility and out of facility, meaning in the nursing homes or nursing home patients who were moved out of the facility to a hospital, for instance. However, in early May 2020, this reporting changed to only in-facility deaths. Was this change your decision?
No, sir.
Whose decision was it?
I don't know.
This change obviously made...
Okay, you should know the answer to that
Yeah.
question. That
You're the governor.
yeah, bro.
the reported number of nursing home related deaths lower. Do you know if that was the reason for changing the reporting?
No, if I may, doctor. Every day, I personally did a daily briefing and reported the number of deaths. The surest place with the most certainty was this is the place where they died. Every night we got a census from the hospitals. Every night we got a census from the nursing homes, total nursing home deaths, total hospital deaths.
Okay.
I had confidence in those numbers. As the Republicans started this nursing home scandal theory, there were more requests for more subcategories. At-home deaths, probable deaths, presumed deaths, in facility, out of facility. And dealing with those subcategories, the numbers were less than certain and they were highly problematic because you were calling up a nursing home and basically asking them to do a forensic audit in the middle of a pandemic. Please track this patient. They went from the nursing home to home, and what happened? They went from the nursing home to the hospital. Can you find out what happened?
So basic pandemic tracking. That's basic stuff, man. You have to track in the midst of a pandemic. You have to track where these sick people are going,
Yeah.
and what's happening. He acts like it's this crazy theory to do that. That's genuinely part of your job, man.
The confidence level in the out-of-facility deaths or presumed deaths was very weak and very low. It was very important to me that whatever I said, I knew was accurate. They asked for out-of-facility deaths. They asked for presumed deaths. I said, when we have accurate numbers, I will release them. But I'm not going to release numbers that I don't believe and we have reason to believe were false. And
Okay, that I believe is reasonable. Why would you release numbers that you don't have confidence in, right? I have no idea if these are accurate. I'm not going to release these. I can understand that. But stop blaming everything and everyone else for your decisions.
there was a lot of double counting and a lot of mistakes in those numbers. And doctor, my briefings attracted people because they got the truth. And whereas President Trump would say a different thing every day, I only said what I knew to be a fact. And I was not going to put out a number unless I knew it was true. I said I was not putting out the out-of-facility deaths until I knew they were true, but the total number was unchanged. In other words, the out-of-facility deaths would have just reallocated deaths from hospitals to nursing homes and reduced the hospital number. But the total death number was exactly the same.
Not if you didn't have confidence in the numbers. He just said, we found out there was a lot of double counting.
Yeah.
So, bullshit.
So the daily reporting was not the only way the New York State Department of Health shared nursing home fatality death with its public. There was a report released on July 6, 2020 that purported to be an in-depth analysis of nursing home data. During the past several months of transcribed interviews, select subcommittee staff heard from multiple witnesses that this report started off as a data-driven scholarly article with work from several Department of Health employees. But prior to its release, decisions were made by members of your executive chamber who were not public health experts to change the numbers in this report. Again, the changes made lowered the number of nursing home related fatalities included in the report. So were you aware of the fact that there were seemingly two versions of what was released as the July 6, 2020 New York State Department Health Report?
Yeah, the purpose of the July 6th report was not to do a scholarly article for a medical journal. We were in the middle of a pandemic. And there may have been people who wanted to do a scholarly article for a medical journal, but this had a much more practical purpose. We're in the middle of a pandemic. How was COVID getting into the nursing homes? That was the question. How was COVID getting into the nursing homes? That was the question.
We could tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna break your brain here a minute. You keep sending COVID positive people to nursing homes. How the fuck do you think it gets there, bruh?
How was COVID getting into the nursing homes? And that was the purpose of the report. There were multiple sets of numbers because the numbers kept changing because the nursing homes were under tremendous pressure, and this was a tremendous accounting task that we were asking them to do. The report used the verified numbers, and I said, because this was a question every day, doctor, this was not like surreptitious. I said, when we have the out-of-facility numbers that we believe are accurate, we will release them. They were not in the July 6th report. The health commissioner said he had the verified numbers, there were unverified numbers. They both backed the same conclusion in the report. So he decided to use the verified numbers. And we said, when we audit the unverified numbers, we will release them. So it was everyone was always clear. Here's the total death. Here are the subcategories that we feel confident about. Here's what we don't feel confident about. Also, this was very political at the time. President Trump was accusing me of overcounting the number. He said I was inflating the number to make him look bad.
Now, remember, guys, just a few moments ago, during this very same hearing, he admitted double counting happened.
Uh-huh.
But everything's Trump's fault.
That there were actually fewer deaths, and I was inflating the number. So it's ironic that now the accusation is, oh no, you were undercounting the number, right? But you have to pick it at one point.
No, the accusation is you're a lying sack of shit. That's the accusation. And as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen any evidence to the contrary, because you just admitted double counting happened. The numbers were all messed up.
Let me just ask you directly, and let me remind you that you are under oath, Governor. Did you direct your staff to make the number of nursing home related fatalities lower than they actually were?
No, we said these are the numbers without the out-of-facility death numbers, which we will add when they're accurate, which will reduce the hospital count number, but the total death number stays exactly the same. It was an allocation question. Do you allocate the death to the nursing home, or do you allocate it to the hospital? But the total death number was the same. And the only reason the Republicans were asking these questions about nursing home deaths was to further their conspiracy theory that there were massive deaths in nursing homes, which in my opinion was a pure diversion from the federal malpractice that was going on, because everybody knows that COVID did not get into nursing homes from admissions or readmissions. It came in from community spread. And the reason why you had so many infected staff workers going to work was because the federal government had no PPE, no masks, no equipment, no warning, no preparation. We had a president who lied to us from day one.
As ranking member of this.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So our next clip is Comer from Kentucky, right?
And he's the chairman of the full committee of oversight.
Okay, so the full oversight committee chairman, Congressman Comer,
from Kentucky.
From Kentucky, right? Okay.
I now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Comer from Kentucky, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you. Governor Cuomo, do you stand by the March 25th, 2020 directive?
The March 25th directive was based on the CDC CMS guidance.
So you stand by it?
They both do the same thing. Both
you
CMS,
said that,
CDC, and DOH.
Excuse me. You said that the directive followed CDC and CMS guidance. Are you aware of anyone in your office that asked CDC or CMS about the policies in the directive?
The Attorney General opined legally they were the same and said the March 25th order was consistent with the federal guidance.
Okay,
and
so
that's
you
how it
stand
was
by
enforced.
it, and you say it followed federal guidance. Then why did it need to be superseded by executive order? Was this because
It was
you were
superseded
getting bad
later
press?
on. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
It was superseded later on because we then got to a position in May, I believe, where we had enough testing capacity and we mandated testing for nursing home staff.
So it had nothing to do with public relations or bad
And it
pressure.
also this political, this was all politics all the time.
Okay.
And it bothered and scared people because they didn't know who to believe.
Okay. So on June 7th, 2020, your executive assistant sent this email writing, and I quote, "This is going to be the great debacle in the history books. The longer it lasts, the harder to correct. We have a better argument than we made. Get a report on the facts because this legacy will overwhelm any positive accomplishment. Also, how many COVID people will return to the nursing homes in that period? How many nursing homes? Don't you see how bad this is? Or do we admit error and give up?" Ms. Benton is your executive assistant. I believe she's sitting behind you. Did she write this email on your behalf?
Yes.
Governor, did you have an email account while you were governor?
No. Well, I may have had one, but I didn't use it.
Okay. Was there a reason?
Right. You never used you never sent an email while you were governor?
I guess not. That's what he said.
I haven't used it in years.
Did you communicate in other ways with your staff? Text messages or BlackBerry
Yes.
messages? You did. You just said that you stood by the directive, but this email asked if it was time to admit error and give up. Was the March 25th directive an error?
No, this was the last line, sir, was tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
This,
Oh, give me a break, dude. Like you can't, there's no reality where you're
No.
going to write that as a tongue-in-cheek joke.
No.
None. Zero.
this was an ongoing, raging political debate where the Republicans were saying March 25th caused deaths.
So
I said, answer it fully.
I understand, Governor, you testified that you were not aware of the directive until April 20th, 2020, almost a month after it had been issued. When you were asked about it at a press conference after you learned of the order, did you have any concerns about the directive?
When I was asked about it at the press conference, I was not aware of it. If I had been aware of it, my answer would have been very simple. I would have said, ask Donald Trump.
Did you ask questions after you learned about the directive?
After I learned about it,
What
yes, I asked questions.
Give me some examples.
I was debriefed by the Commissioner of Health, who said, this is the theory of CMS and CDC and DOH, that these people are no longer infectious.
Did you ever discuss terminating or amending the directive after you learned of it?
When it was described to me that CDC, CMS, and DOH all thought this was a good idea, and they had a medical theory behind it, that these were non-infectious people, et cetera.
For time's sake, Governor, to return to the email, why did you direct your staff to get a report on the facts?
Well, just to counter the newspaper story.
So on July 6, 2020, the Department of Health issued the report you requested. Was this report peer reviewed?
I don't know.
It was not. Was this report in a medical journal?
It was not. It was a
was
government
not.
report. It was not
the-
for a medical journal.
Was the executive chamber involved in the drafting and editing of the report?
I'm sure the executive chamber
It
was.
was. So you requested a report on the facts, and you got a report that was not peer reviewed, not in a medical journal, and drafted and edited by the very body accused of wrongdoing.
Right.
So,
We
Governor, do
investigated
you stand by
And found we did
and
nothing
found
wrong.
we did nothing wrong once again.
the July 6 report?
So this is in real time. We're acting. An agency is taking an action.
He's asking you, do you now stand by what you did? We're not talking about then. We're talking about now. This dude, he's like, this guy's gotten so far in politics because he's really good at dodging questions.
You ask the agency for a report on the
And
action.
Governor, my time has expired. Mr. Chairman, what's clear is the governor was desperate to change the narrative,
Yeah.
to dispel of the notion that his administration failed nursing home residents, that that he failed to ask any questions. And Governor, I believe you failed to follow the facts. And it's now clear that you should have done what your assistant suggested in the email, and that was admitted error and given up.
If you believe the CMS and CDC were wrong, then that would be your position.
Right. As always, it's Trump's fault. It's the federal government's fault. It's the
Always is.
yeah. All right. So our next clip is okay. So this individual's name is Dingell, right? Representative Dingell from
Michigan.
Michigan.
Her husband,
Is your husband named Barry?
No.
Dude.
but her
like-
husband was in Congress for like 58 years,
Holy
and then he
crap.
died, and now they elected her.
They elected her. Okay. All right. So I don't know if I could prevent myself from naming a child. I'd at least have a pet named Barry. That way you could put Dingell, Barry. I mean, their jokes write themselves. Okay.
All right.
Anyway. All right. Our next clip is 10846. Dingell.
There she is. I just saw her.
All right. From Michigan.
How many deaths in nursing homes?
Whoa.
Let's go.
What the heck happened? It was at the right spot. Let's try this again. That was weird.
From Michigan for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor Cuomo, thank you for appearing before this select subcommittee today. As you are hearing and you are aware, your administration has faced allegations that it did not transparently report nursing home deaths. I want to give you the opportunity to respond to those allegations in a calm way. On July 6, 2020, the New York State Department of Health released a report related to nursing home COVID-19 deaths. That report has since been criticized, and we've been discussing, for undercounting deaths by excluding those deaths that occurred outside of the facility, for example, at the hospital. How do you respond to that criticism? Shortly, briefly.
Congresswoman, we were reporting total deaths every day. Number in hospitals, number in nursing homes. This political dispute started. How many deaths in nursing homes? Let's go count those that were in hospitals, what they call out of facility. Those numbers, in my opinion, were very sketchy. And they, depending on the day, they moved around a lot. I was not going to report inaccurate information. So we specifically said, here is the nursing home number without the out-of-facility number. And when we have it, we will provide it. But it didn't change the conclusion of the report. It specifically said, we do not now have the out-of-facility number. We will provide it to you once we audit it. We did audit it. It was wrong, over 20%. And then it was corrected. But the total number.
So once again, yes, there were mistakes made, either double counting, messed up counting, but of course, it's not his fault. It's not his administration's fault. It's all Trump's fault.
Of which was 35,739 total deaths. That is what never changed. Congresswoman, I live this every day.
Okay, I have some more questions for you.
Okay.
Thank you. At your transcribed interview, you told us that Dr. Howard Zucker, the head of your Department of Health, decided what numbers to put in the July 6th report. But for his part, Dr. Zucker testified that he does not know how that decision was made. A member of your COVID-19 task force told us that Melissa DeRosa made the decision to remove the out-of-facility deaths from the July 6th report. Other members of your COVID-19 task force testified similarly. In your transcribed interview, and you've heard it referred to here, you said, let's say there's a 3,000 differential, 2,500. Who cares? What difference does it make in any dimension
Ouch.
to anyone about anything?
Yeah. Ouch.
You know who also said, what difference does it make?
Hillary.
I mean, I think there are plenty of people that it matters to when you
Yeah.
misrepresent the number of people that are dying because of decisions that you made.
Uh-huh.
I want to say,
Bruh.
Governor Cuomo, I care. Every
Yeah.
member of this committee cares. And more importantly, every family member who lost a family member cared.
Mhm.
So let's be very clear about that.
Yeah.
With that said, can you help us reconcile the contradiction between your testimony and the testimony offered by individuals you handpicked for your COVID-19 task force?
Congresswoman, there were a number of subcategories. In facility, out of facility, presumed, hospital, at-home deaths, and those categories, yes, as data points are going to be important. In the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of the frenzy, when nursing homes are shorthanded and they're working to save lives, to ask them to go through an accounting process wasn't the best use of time. The total number never changed, and that's what was most important. And we said when we do a audit of the individual categories, we will release the individual category numbers. So that was always clear that the total death number was right, but we had to do the allocation within the categories.
So we've heard there were concerns about data errors, particularly during the spring and summer of 2020, leading your administration not to publish the out-of-facility deaths. But it wasn't until February 2021 your administration decided that its nursing home reports should include those deaths. Why did it take so long for your administration to include those out-of-facility deaths in the nursing home reports?
It's a good question, Congresswoman, because we were doing the audits of the numbers. President Trump started a Department of Justice
Oh my
investigation against New York and several other Democratic states on nursing home data. It was a political investigation, that was clear, but the easiest indictment is if a false number was created.
I now recognize Ms.
numbers gotta be
Maliotakis from New
double-checked
York
and
for 5 minutes.
Once again, everything's Trump's fault.
That's
Yeah.
what they claim.
I'm so tired of that being the excuse every single time. The person who was only in office for 4 years, not the people who've been in Congress for my whole lifetime. It's not their fault. It's Trump's fault. This guy who was governor for a decade, it's not his fault. It's Trump's fault. Fuck these people. All right. So next
I think it
is
goes right into the Nets one.
yeah, it goes right into Maliotakis.
Yeah.
Maliotakis. I don't know how you say the name. I'm back it up. He said it. I couldn't hear it because of blah, 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 blah.
It's a
False number was created.
I now recognize Ms.
numbers gotta be
Maliotakis from New
double-checked.
York.
Maliotakis. Okay.
She's
I
a
always
freshman member.
try at least to say people's names right. I goof off a little, but I try ultimately to say their names right because I have a difficult last name for the North and nobody says it correctly. I gave up decades ago.
She's a freshman member of Congress.
Freshman member of Congress from New York. Okay. Republican.
For 5 minutes of questions. Time's expired, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor Cuomo, I planned a series of questions, but after reading your opinion piece in the Sunday's Daily News and hearing your testimony here today, I'll use my time to correct the half-truths and lies that insult New Yorkers.
Ooh.
You cite CMS data to claim New York had the 12th lowest death rate at the end of 2020. However, CMS began collecting data in mid-May, so the deaths when your deadly directive was in full force were not included. Your administration reported 6,000 deaths. The true toll was 11,400, nearly double. You assert your March 25th directive never mandated nursing homes to admit COVID-positive patients. This is false. Your directive very clearly says no resident shall be denied, and it prohibited COVID testing before admission.
Okay, that's huge.
Uh-huh.
So you have to take someone and you cannot test them.
Yep.
What the hell did you think was going to happen?
It was almost
Your
intentional.
Whoops. That's what I'm saying. Like some of this stuff, there's no way it's not intentional. There's no way. I don't know about this particular thing, but it doesn't pass the smell test. Smells like bullshit.
Op-ed and again today, you claim that the directive mirrored CDC guidelines. This is also false. Both CMS and CDC use permissive language like can and should, not shall and must, and only if facilities could isolate and take precautions. Former CMS.
I'm going to say this really quickly. There was a lot of talk earlier. I was waiting to see if someone else would address it. There was a lot of talk earlier about language, right? And should, could, must, all these things. These words have literal, very straight-laced definitions as far as legal goes, right? You guys remember a little bit ago we had a Supreme Court case on permit issuance.
Yep.
Shall issue versus can issue. Shall issue means they must. Shall do something, right? Shall and must. Can means you don't have to, right? May. These are things that, they're used very particularly in orders and laws because of the different meanings of the words.
And only if facilities could isolate and take precautions. Former CMS Administrator Seema Verma, former White House Dr. Deborah Birx, both testified that your actions violated those guidelines. CDC and CMS would never recommend prohibiting testing, yet your directive did, all while you were sending tests to the Hamptons for your family. And you also falsely claimed this directive was the standard across the country, even trying to hide behind Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's directive when Minnesota's guidance actually included caveats, precautions. It didn't prevent nursing homes from testing patients like your directive did. You claimed that the March 25th directive was to protect hospital capacity, but you had the U.S. Navy Comfort Ship and the Javits Center deployed and it was remain underutilized. You said that nursing homes could still have denied entry to those they could not safely care for under existing law, but you suspended that very regulation in a March 7th, 2020 executive order, stripping nursing homes of that ability to deny admission. And on top of all of that, you say New York didn't undercount nursing home deaths, yet your chief of staff directed that the deaths of nursing home residents outside the facility not be counted. And later, exactly 1 month after the New York Attorney General exposed that you underreported the nursing home deaths by 50%, your chief told Democrat lawmakers in New York that she admitted that the true toll was withheld to avoid attracting prosecutors. That, Governor Cuomo, is a cover-up.
Yes, it is.
You've tried to blame everyone, including the CDC, the CMS, nursing home operators, nursing home staff, and unidentified low-level DOH staffer that supposedly sent out this directive. And of course, President Trump.
Of course.
But the buck stops with you.
Yes.
You testified that you don't know who signed off on this March 25th directive. And your DOH commissioner did not either, you say, despite both of your names being at the top of the letterhead. In the closed-door testimony, both you and your chief of staff told the committee it was some mid-level staffer at the Department of Health. But the commissioner and the deputy commissioner of the Department of Health said it was your executive chamber that approved it. You did not have a name on June 11th. Do you have one today? Who signed off on this directive? Was it you?
Let me try to.
Was it the Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul? Was it your chief of staff, Melissa? No, it's a yes or no. I mean, was it you? Was it Kathy Hochul? Was it your chief of staff, Melissa DeRosa? Or maybe it was that communist spy. Maybe it was that communist Chinese spy, Linda's son, who worked in your administration.
Well, maybe when
Let me just please.
I find it interesting that all these Democrats have communist spies working for them. I mean, just saying, I'm just saying.
finish and I'll let you answer at the end, because I find it hard to believe, Governor, that the governor of the state of New York, you're known to be a micromanager, right? Who did a briefing every day for 111 straight days.
Yeah.
We find it hard to believe that you did not know that this directive with such consequences went out with your name at the top, and that you didn't get to the bottom, right? Don't you want to get to the bottom of who did issue this after all the media attention, the public scrutiny, the deaths that resulted? You've shown, I'm sorry, but you've shown no empathy. You've shown no remorse. You show no responsibility for the actions of your administration. And that's just not leadership.
Yeah.
And I will say also that your lieutenant and successor, Governor Kathy Hochul, is just as determined to hide the truth from New Yorkers as you were. I mean, in her very first speech as governor, she promised transparency, including the release of documents related to nursing homes and the pandemic. Yet to this day, she has not fulfilled that promise, and I'm glad that we've issued a subpoena to get those documents. So who issued this executive order, this deadly directive?
Okay.
And why didn't you reverse the directive when you had alternative facilities like the Javits and South Beach Psychiatric Center on Staten Island?
Yeah. Congresswoman, quickly, the numbers I cited are published on the NIH website. It's a study that corrects for the numbers not received in May. The Dr. Birx and Dr. Seema were not presented an honest account of what the New York law says. It's the Attorney General who said and interprets New York laws, and you were in the legislature, and you know that the state
time has
runs
expired.
on the Attorney General's interpretation.
Governor, the time has expired.
Yeah. So, but the Attorney General said it was okay.
Mhm.
And if it wasn't okay, it was Trump's fault.
Yeah.
I mean, that really, the Attorney General, Letitia James, come on, dude. Like, anyway, she said it's okay. So it's okay.
Mhm.
And if there's anything that's wrong, it was the nursing home's fault, Trump's fault, the Republicans' fault, and the federal government's fault. And I'm not going to say Dr. Birx lied because you guys lied to her.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Bruh. Okay, our last clip is from Representative Meeks, Republican from Iowa, for about 5 minutes. 125:17.
There she is.
Back. Now recognized Dr. Miller Meeks from Iowa for 5 minutes of questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Governor Cuomo, for testifying before the Select Subcommittee today. I was hoping that we would see a Governor Cuomo that was less defensive and that was remorseful over what happened in New York, but I see that that person has not shown up today.
Yeah.
The COVID-19 pandemic is long behind us. As a matter of fact, we were already behind it, through it, at the time this administration came into office. And an overwhelming majority of Americans have some form of immunity, whether from prior infection, which was denied by the current administration and CDC, both Dr. Fauci at NIH and Dr. Walensky as testifying before this committee. And we know more about the virus than ever before. That is undeniably true. But because of this Select Subcommittee, we've also had the opportunity to review policies, guidance, and practices from the pandemic to determine what worked and what didn't work. And let me also say, I'm one of the few members that was on this committee the last term, now my fourth year, as was Representative Raskin, my colleague on the other side of this dais, who could have easily asked you to testify when they were in the majority. However, you were never asked to testify during that 21-22 period.
No.
And they could have also asked a former president to testify. So let me just say that that could have been done. You know, as a nurse, a physician, a veteran, a former director of public health, I really understand that we need to have policies going forward that guide us for the next pandemic.
I agree with
And there
that.
were two aspects of the coronavirus that health officials understood very clearly from the beginning, from the Chinese Communist Party. One was how contagious it was, and two, how contagious it was among older people and people that had medical conditions that were at an increased risk of death from the infection.
We all
In
knew
February
that.
2021, the Associated Press published an article outlining how in New York State, more than 9,000 elderly patients who still had active coronavirus infections were sent back to nursing homes after being discharged from the hospital. Despite this clear lack of medical oversight, that number was 40% higher than what the New York Health Department originally reported. And in the same report your administration published, the overall number of deaths in long-term care facilities was underreported by half, regardless of what excuses you present today to us.
Yeah.
The state health commissioner tried shifting the blame by claiming most nursing home deaths were from asymptomatic staff who unknowingly transmitted infection. As a former state public health director, I find it completely appalling and disrespectful that you tried to constrict your own health department in covering up your harmful policies. You prohibited nursing homes from requiring testing. The CMS guidance allowed you and allowed nursing homes, allowed states to have a decision on who got admitted if they had proper allocation and proper separation in facilities. However, if you had an infection control program, as you said here today, now, that prohibited someone infectious from being admitted to a nursing home, why would you tie the hands of nursing homes by prohibiting testing? You said, how is COVID getting into nursing homes? How in the hell would you know if you prohibited testing? Testing was available. The CDC made mistakes in their testing. We understand that. But you prohibited nursing homes from testing individuals coming from hospitals who could have easily had COVID-19. Governor Cuomo, despite you clearly understanding the likelihood of COVID-19 running through nursing homes like fire through dry grass, as you said to Jared Kushner, your administration still required facilities to accept elderly residents who had active COVID-19 infections, and you prohibited testing.
Yeah.
It really is shameful.
It is.
But yet you want to continue to deflect the blame. So did you advise Governor Newsom of California or Governor Murphy of New Jersey or Governor Whitmer of Michigan on what they should do with nursing home admissions?
All Democrats. What a coincidence.
Well, I'm going to ask you, did you talk to Governor Reynolds?
I was on multiple calls with the vice president and the governors association.
Thank goodness they didn't adopt your policies. Did you talk to Governor Reynolds?
CDC and CMS allows the transfer of infectious, COVID positive infectious people. And New York nursing homes do have the right
they did not
to deny anyone.
Did not. There was specific guidance. You did not follow the guidance. You did not allow your own public health officials to follow the guidance that was given to them. And in addition to which, we now know some states didn't adopt 6 feet distancing, nor did they adopt closing schools, i.e. Iowa did not, despite CMS's guidance, which could have been altered or adhered to by the directive of a particular state. So I find you complicit in what's occurred, and I find the fact that you don't take any, any remorse or any accountability and responsibility for what happened to be appalling. Thank you, and I yield.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to is he refuses to take responsibility still to this day, despite all the overwhelming evidence that he's at fault, whether directly or through his administration. He's the one who did the buck stops with him in New York. And that's what, like, a lot of these lefties don't get, him included, with, the federal government and Donald Trump and this and all that. The states have more power than the federal government within their own borders by a large margin.
By design.
By design, exactly. Yeah. That's the way that the United States is set up for a reason. Yes, we've kind of gotten away from that. Federal government has become huge and far too powerful. But ultimately, guidelines are guidelines. You can make it more, you can make it less. Here's a perfect example, right? So, Chicago. Illinois has certain laws. Chicago has certain stricter laws, guns being an example. Chicago has stricter laws than the state. The state has stricter laws than the country. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
So to say, oh, the federal government guidelines, we followed them. And of course, Letitia James found I did nothing wrong because why would she? She's too busy prosecuting Trump. These people are, I almost did it. I almost did it. These people are stupid. There. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for that one. I hope you enjoyed it. I think enjoy is a little bit of a strong word, but I hope it was informative. I hope you learned something because there are several points in that I wasn't aware of. And it really shows, number one, how the government mismanages things. But also, these people are never going to take responsibility. They're just not.
No.
Even when they're given the opportunity with evidence in front of you to go, listen, I am so sorry. Dude, if I sent people to the, through my actions as a politician, I had sent people to nursing homes and they died, you know how bad I'd feel? I don't know that I'd be able to get out of bed. We're talking thousands and thousands of people here. Dude, and he's just like, oh, it's all Trump's fault. What? Dude, the TDS is strong, is all I'm going to say on that. Look, that's out of the way. We got more of those coming up. There's actually a number of hearings that I think would be very interesting to do in this format because I don't like listening to 5-6 hours worth of testimony. But Shawn apparently gets off on it. That's his thing, and that's okay. No, I'm just kidding. He enjoys watching it, and he enjoys doing the timestamps for us, which I greatly appreciate. But that aside, there's some stuff going on. We have a plan. Released a video earlier. We have a plan. We're going to Springfield. We're going to go see with our own eyes and with our cameras what's actually going on. And I'm really excited about it. We will let you know for sure what day. It'll probably be, it's already Thursday. It'll probably be next week. Hopefully next week and not the following. I got to look at the schedule. I got to talk to my wife. I got to do all of that. But once we have it nailed down, we will be reporting on the ground from Springfield and telling you what the residents are saying. Listen, I don't care about the talking head. I don't care about the city manager. I don't care about the mayor. I don't care about any of those people. I care about the residents of Springfield and what they say. I want to go talk to them. There's a particular guy that I really want to get in touch with.
And I've been trying to find out who it is, and I'm not sure who it is.
Okay, I'm going to show you this guy. I'm not going to play the whole video, but I am going to show you.
We're going to look for this guy.
Yeah, we're going to look for this guy right here. There you go.
Letter.
If you guys are from Springfield or you know someone in Springfield, see if you can find out who this guy is.
I'll keep looking.
Yeah, he is a gentleman who apparently helps the homeless. I think he would have a wealth of information. He said some very, very interesting things. We played it in another video, but if you want to find it, it is from Memology 101, and it says Springfield, Ohio locals are being displaced while city houses migrants with taxpayer money. So if you want to watch the video, by all means, go knock yourself out. It's a good video. But the point for me is I want to know the name of this gentleman. If you can give him my phone number or social media contact and have him reach out to me, I would love to talk to him. Because we're planning on heading to Springfield and reporting. And if you guys want to help, watch the previous video that we did today.
We might have to find him, like we said, when we get there.
Yeah, we may have to find him once we get there. But if you guys want to help, we would love your help. We're not rich people. We're both pretty darn poor. So we have a reliable vehicle to get there.
Yep.
We have, we're going to need gas, food, lodging. We're not looking to throw parties. We're not looking to pull a Dalton Mayer thing where we go to Las Vegas on taxpayer dollars kind of thing. No, but we
just want to get the story.
We just want to get the story. We want to get the truth because apparently no one can be bothered to actually tell the truth about what's going on there. So I want evidence. I want this guy says this. I want to interview him. I want to talk to him. I want to find out just what he has to say as an example. There are other people there that I really want to talk to. I want to see what's happening. And it's not just about the migrants, right? It's about the entire structure of Springfield is crumbling, guys. Like, forget about the pets for a minute. Yeah, that's a big deal. And obviously it's a big deal for the people whose pets are being affected by this. But that's down here.
Yeah.
The real problem, the real issue is you have thousands and thousands of people who came from a foreign country who don't speak the language and who have been thrust into a community that's not designed for it, that's not ready for it. That's going to happen more and more and more. We're seeing it all over, man. Aurora, Colorado, Anyway, so I'd really like to help. I mean, like I said, we're not wealthy. You can reach out though. I'll give you my Cash App, or you can go to Patreon and do it there. I think you can do one-time payments on Patreon. If not, I'll fix it to where you can. But either way, it doesn't matter to me. We're doing it regardless. It would just be really nice if we could have actual food rather than rather than what we find. Maybe we could find a cat. I'm kidding. I told you I have a dark sense of humor. Too far. Too soon.
Anyway.
Obviously, I'm joking. I do not eat cats. They're way too stringy. It's a joke. All right, guys. I'm done before I get myself into trouble. We'll talk to you guys again real soon. Shawn will be busy for a few days. We will coordinate to find out when he's available again. But in the meantime, I have several videos that we were able to record, and boom, we'll put them out there for you. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Seriously, thank you for taking the time to watch this and to hang out with us. We really appreciate it. And as always, God bless you, God bless Indiana, and God bless the United States of America. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Good night.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers, Sean Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2024. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.